Arunachala Shiva.
सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय Ramakrishnaय ते नमः. I am Professor Radhakrishnan speaking on Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Once a devotee of Sri Narayana Guru approached him and showing a photo asked him what he thought of the person in the photo. It was a photo of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Gurudevan, who had not seen any photo of Sri Ramakrishna, as he was then known only to a very few in Calcutta, looked at the photo and commented that if Brahman could take a human form, it would look like it. Only a Mahatma could recognize another Mahatma. Swami Vivekananda also said that his master was Brahman in the Vedantic sense. It is immaterial whether you call him Sthitaprajna or Jivanmukta or Nityamukta or by any other name. The fact is, as Isharud says in his book Sri Ramakrishna and his Disciples, that Sri Ramakrishna was a phenomenon. A phenomenon is something extraordinary and mysterious, and yet is a fact. It is beyond our limited minds to comprehend the wondrous attributes of such a self-realized soul who is one with the cosmic mind. How can a drop of water understand the sea? All that is possible is to merge with it, like the salt dole which tries to fathom the depth of the sea, as in the fable told by the master himself. According to Swami Vivekananda, his chief disciples, who understands him best and who propagates his teachings, all that I am, all that the world itself will someday be, is owing to my master. His life was a living commentary on the Vedas, demonstrating the highest spiritual truths through practice in a single lifetime. He had, in 51 years, lived the 5,000 years of national spiritual life, and so raised himself to be an object lesson for future generations. He is the latest avatar and the most perfect Avatara Varishta, the concentrated embodiment of knowledge, love, renunciation, Catholicity, and the desire to save mankind. In him, there has been an assemblage of ideas deeper than the sea and vaster than the skies. He came for the good of the world. His life is a searchlight of infinite power thrown upon the whole mass of Indian religious thought. Sri Aurobindo called him a colossal spiritual reservoir. Ramarola called Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji as the perfect symphony of a universal soul. Ramakrishna says he was the younger brother of Christ, whose inner life embraced the whole multiplicity of men and gods. For Mahatma Gandhi, the story of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's life is a story of religion in practice. His life enables us to see God face to face. His life, with its utmost purity, love, truth, knowledge, and bliss, is the perfect model of practical religion. He demonstrated the universality, depth, light, and sweetness of Sanatana Dharma. Max Muller, in his article, called him the real Mahatma. Gita, 7th chapter, 19th sloka indicates that a Mahatma is the one who enjoys perfect realization of God and who, in his every movement, completely and perfectly manifests that divinity. In other words, a Mahatma is a living God. Infinite knowledge, infinite purity, infinite power, infinite love, infinite bliss become his natural traits. A Mahatma, moreover, is one whose heart bleeds for the poor, says Swamiji. Sri Ramakrishna was thus an embodiment of Satyam, Jnanam, universal love, renunciation, and bliss. It is to cater to the specific needs of the times that God takes human form as incarnations in the world to establish dharma and to eradicate the evils. 19th century was a period of high tide of materialism and blind faith in science and reason. Consequently, spirituality and the human values were at their lowest ebb. What was worse, even religion, which is meant to make men lead a dharmic life, neglected its noble ideals and degenerated into superstitions and even means of exploitation. Sectarianism and religious fundamentalism often led to violence and bloodshed. In India, English-educated youth imitated everything European and paid scant regard for the time-tested ideals and ways of life of Sanatana Dharma. The philosophies of that period were by and large materialistic and utilitarian and looked at life partially and superficially. They relied wholly on reason, logic, and analysis. Religion was considered at best as the opium of the people, a way of escapism from life, and at worst a sure sign of diseased mind. Consequently, large sections of the educated class became either atheists or skeptics. They sadly forgot the truth that external changes can at best only be temporary and often result in violence, while the real transformation is within, that is mental and spiritual, what Swamiji often advocated as man-making, which alone can lead to stable and peaceful all-round positive changes even without. It was a time when Hinduism, in the words of Swami Vivekananda, degenerated into kitchen religion and the dance of the devil with its superstitions, rigid caste system, and consequent exploitation of the poor and the neglect of women. The Hindu religion, which aims at manifesting the potential divinity within and provides sweetness and light for the whole world, tended to make men next door neighbor to brutes, said Swamiji in anger. The Hindu paper in the beginning of 1892 even wrote an obituary saying that Hinduism is dead, its course is run. The advent of Sri Ramakrishna in the 19th century was a momentous event which helped to rejuvenate and strengthen the much misunderstood and decayed Indian spirituality and to make the people realize its truthfulness, practicality, and universal goodness. It was he who, by living and practicing true religion, paved the way for a mighty mental and spiritual revolution, the impact of which is still being felt. He proved that religion is not merely doctrines, dogmas, belief systems, rituals, or books, but it is realization, being and becoming, and hence is more scientific and rational than science itself. Without any formal education, scholarship, or oratory, the poor priest of the Dakshineshwar Kali temple delved deep into his own inner layers, and by the force of his purity, unselfishness, universal love, and above all, by his intense longing or vyakulata, realized his chosen deity Kali, who is inseparable from the supreme truth. Not content with that, he went on experimenting with every mode of realization like Dvaita, Visishtadvaita, and Advaita, the different aspects of Hinduism like Vaishnava, Shakteya and Tantrika, various means of realization like knowledge, devotion, yoga, etc. Different attitudes like Dasya, Madhura, Sakhya, Valsalya, etc. Besides God with form and formless. He realized the oneness through all these manifold means and forms. Not content with these, he also experimented with other religions like Islam and Christianity and found them all leading to the same goal if practiced sincerely. Ordinarily, it may take many lives for one to attain God realization through any one of these means, but he has achieved the incredible in about 12 years of his early life. Hence, he remains not only the essence of Indian spirituality, but is the sum and substance of world religious realizations as well. His spiritual experiences were phenomenal and unprecedented in the spiritual history of the world. He was like a scientist of the inner world. Sri Ramakrishna realized both the macrocosmic, that is samashti, and the microcosmic, like vyashti, the individual and the cosmic aspects of the same reality of Satchidananda. What does he, the Sarvadharma Samanvaya Murti, try to convince us through these realizations? All the religions of the world are but different manifestations of the eternal religion, which is oneness. Depending on the cultures, temperaments, and attitudes of people belonging to different regions, there may be differences in the rituals, ceremonies, and mythologies, which are but externals of religion. In his own inimitable way, he tells us that the pillow covers may have different colors, but the cotton inside is the same in all. So also, the indwelling God is the same in all the religions, which can be reached by following one's own religion sincerely. As the Bhagavad Gita reminds us, the same God remains like the inner golden thread running through all the varied outer beats. As many faiths, so many paths, said Sri Ramakrishna. This truth is echoed in the Chicago Parliament of Religions by Swamiji when he declared that though the various rivers may take their origins from different sources and though they may flow through different terrains, all fall ultimately in the same sea. Hence, he emphasized the cardinal virtue of Hinduism thus: we do not merely tolerate, but we accept all religions as true. When sectarianism and religious fanaticism are making the world a hell, how refreshing it would be if the people heeded this sane advice and act accordingly. Swamiji echoed the advice of his master by saying that religious quarrels are always over the husks. When purity goes away from our minds and when spirituality goes away from our soul, we begin to quarrel with the followers of other religions, even sometimes with the followers of the same religion. None should try to convert others into his or her own religion. The Christian is not to become a Hindu or a Buddhist, nor a Hindu or a Buddhist to become a Christian, but each religion must assimilate the spirit of the others and yet preserve the individuality and grow according to his own law of growth. He also reminds them that holiness, purity, and charity are not the exclusive possessions of any church in the world, and that every system has produced men and women of the most exalted character. Upon the banner of every religion, he says, will soon be written, in spite of resistance, help and not fight, assimilation and not destruction, harmony and peace and not dissension. He warns the people of the dangers of living like a frog in the well, thinking that one's own religion is the only true one, while others are all wrong. Swamiji was only broadcasting the truths he himself had learned and internalized from his master's experiences. The relevance and importance of religious harmony based on the essential equality of all religions in the modern world cannot thus be overemphasized. For Sri Ramakrishna, the universe which we perceive through our senses is ignorance or avidya, and to perceive the Brahman without the universe is jnana or knowledge. But the ultimate state is one when the entire universe, both within and without, is experienced as suffused with divinity, which he calls Vijnanam, Ishavasyam idam sarvam, the result of complete egolessness. Sri Ramakrishna was not just a Jnani, he was a Vijnani in that sense. After climbing to the terrace, one finds that the terrace is made of the same materials as the steps. The awareness and conviction that fire exists in the wood is jnana, knowledge. But to cook rice on that fire, eat the rice and get nourishment from it is vijnana. To know by one's own inner experience that God exists is jnana. But to talk to Him, to enjoy Him as child, as friend, as master, as beloved, that is vijnana. The Jnani says this world is a framework of illusion. But for a Vijnani who is beyond both knowledge and ignorance, sees it as a mansion of mirth. He sees that it is God Himself who has become the universe, all living beings, and the 24 cosmic principles. He alone who, after reaching the Nitya, the Absolute, can dwell in the Leela, the relative, and again climb from the Leela to the Nitya and has right knowledge and devotion. Sages like Narada cherished love of God after attaining the knowledge of Brahman. To give the example given by the master, a bilwa fruit includes flesh, seeds and shell. One gets the flesh by discarding the shell and seeds. But if one wants to know the weight of the fruit, he cannot find it if he discards the shell and seeds. Just so, one should attain Satchidananda by first negating the universe and its living beings. But after the attainment of Satchidananda, one would find that Satchidananda itself has become the universe and the living beings. If the many and the one be indeed the same reality, writes Sister Nivedita in the introduction to the complete verse of Swami Vivekananda, then it is not all modes of worship alone, but equally all modes of work, all modes of struggle, all modes of creation, which are but paths of realization. No distinction henceforth between sacred and secular. To labor is to pray. To conquer is to renounce. Life itself becomes religion. Brahman and Shakti, Purusha and Prakriti are not different, but one and the same, like fire and its burning power, or the snake at rest and moving. When, for instance, Swami Vivekananda expressed his desire to immerse himself in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the master chided him, saying that he should not be so selfish to think only of his own welfare. There is a higher state than Nirvikalpa Samadhi when one sees God in all and in everything and serve them as such. On another occasion, when there was a talk on compassion among his disciples, the master reprimanded them by asking, "Who is to show compassion to whom, insignificant worms as you are? Serve them, especially the poor and the suffering, as veritable gods. Shivajnane Jiva Seva." This utterance of his master was the inspiration for Swamiji to formulate his practical Vedanta with its twin ideals of renunciation and service, which are but the cardinal ideals of Sanatana Dharma itself. The establishment of Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission, with its ideals of Atmano Mokshartha Jagat Hidayacha, is the outcome of this realization. God alone is the truth. If God exists, why we cannot see Him? Sri Ramakrishna's answer is, you cannot see God during the days of our ignorance. Just because you cannot see the stars in the sky during daytime, can you deny the existence of stars? It is possible, he assures us, to see him, to know him, nay, even to talk to him. His own life was proof positive of it. We may recall the young Narendranath's first meeting with his master at Dakshineshwar, when he asked the master whether he has seen God. Back came the master's reply, "Yes, I have seen God. I see him as I see you here, only more clearly." God can be seen, one can talk to him, but who cares for God? People shed torrents of tears for their wives, children, wealth and property, but who weeps for the vision of God? If one cries sincerely to God, one can surely see him. Later, he made Swamiji realize the truth of his assertion in unambiguous ways. He reminds us that God is in all, but unfortunately, all are not in God, hence we suffer. These days, when physical sciences are becoming no more physical or material, Sri Ramakrishna's life and teachings are increasingly becoming guidelines for science itself. The very conception of basic elements in science like matter, energy, space and time has all undergone changes. Physics is now becoming metaphysical, withdrawing from the external universe and moving steadily to the internal. Modern scientists are beginning to realize that the universe seen through the senses is but the creation of the mind and hence is unreal, and that behind this universe, this unstable and ephemeral universe, there must be a stable and unchanging power which is beyond human intellect to fathom. They in their wisdom now realize that all in the universe are interconnected at a deeper level. Thus, modern science is veering round the spiritual truth that there is something, call it consciousness or what you will, beyond the mind and intellect, in which is latent the energy which could be the cause of this universe. All the scientific formulations, however, are now only on the intellectual and abstract level, and these have to be realized through spiritual practices. It is here that the intense spiritual practices undertaken by Sri Ramakrishna and their relevance become all the more important and relevant. This Avatar Varishta, who took a human form for the sake of human good, revealed to us through his life that the goal of human life is to realize the divinity which is inherent in man and also the practical means of achieving this goal. We have to consider him as one who has, by dint of his intense sadhanas, rose to godhood in innumerable ways, and then only we can follow him through at least one of these ways best suited to us to achieve the goal of life. Sri Ramakrishna considered every woman as representative of Divine Mother, worthy of worship and reverence. He once said that the female deity in the temple, his own mother and his wife Sharada Devi, are all alike for him. He chose Bhairavi Brahmani as his guru and worshipped his wife as goddess and performed Shodashi Puja and surrendered the fruits of all his sadhanas to her. Their relationship had nothing physical about it, and it was a purely spiritual relationship. She, being divine self herself, rose to the occasion and actively helped him in his spiritual pursuits. He also made her succeed him as the Sankha Jnani, and it was her purity and all-embracing love that cemented the relationship among the disciples in the early period of the Ramakrishna movement. Sri Ramakrishna was both an ideal householder and an ideal sannyasi. He himself stated that he left his consort Holy Mother Sharada Devi in the world to manifest the motherhood of God. As a mother loves her children, the great mother heart of God loves all. Holy Mother was an incarnation of pure, unselfish love. She was his Shakti, the Mahamaya, capable of releasing sincere devotees from the snares of samsara, as she has done for countless number of devotees. As Dharmarola stated, that the new India is impregnated with the soul of Sri Ramakrishna, the twin star of the Paramahamsa and the hero, that is Swamiji, who translated his thoughts into action, dominates and guides her present destinies. The present leaders of India, the king of thinkers, that is Sri Aurobindo, the king of poets, that is Tagore, and the Mahatma, that is Mahatma Gandhi, have all grown, flowered, and borne fruit under the double constellation of the swan, that is Sri Ramakrishna, and the eagle, that is Swamiji. Elsewhere he says that while we but cannot read beyond a page or two of the book of life, this illiterate priest of the Kali temple has learned the entire book by heart, and what is more, prompted by his intense love for mankind, was ready to teach us all. Those who read Vajanamritam, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, would know how true this statement is. It is an authentic record of Indian spirituality brought down to the practical level of experience. Lofty Vedantic precepts are presented dramatically and often with humor through simple stories, anecdotes, and parables with familiar environments. In fact, this great work is considered as the most important spiritual book of modern times. Unlike other spiritual teachers, Sri Ramakrishna has boundless love and compassion for householders, those who are immersed in this material world in ignorance, and holds their hands and tries to lift them up. In fact, 3/4 of Vajanamritam is devoted to advice to the householders for those who are very busy and have not much time to spare for spiritual pursuits. As he says, he gives them the fleshy part of the fish after removing its head and tail for easy absorption and practice. We Indians, especially our householders, during the past few centuries had lost faith in ourselves. Everyone was possessed by the meek attitude, we are after all samsaris, worldly people, what can we do? Sri Ramakrishna came to remove this negative attitude. You are in samsara, but you should not allow samsarikata or worldliness to enter into you, he advises. Someone asked him, Sir, we are householders, can we realize God? Promptly came the reply, Certainly, you can realize Him. God can be realized by all. He is our own inner self. Through Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother and Swami Vivekananda, householders of today and the future will develop a new sense of joy, a sense of self-reliance, and a spirit of social and national responsibility, so said Swami Ranganathananda. The Master recommends bhakti or devotion for them, and in it, the attitude of a servant to his master as Hanuman to Sri Rama is best suited. Sincere prayer, contact with holy men, occasional retreats in isolation are suggested by him. The Master advises the householders to first understand their condition in all its reality. Unless they know that they are in bondage, they may not have the urge to free themselves. We are like silkworms, he says. If need be, we can burst open the cocoon and come out. But we have, with much difficulty, prepared it and hence do not want to lose it.
and so prefer dying inside. It is like holding the pillar with both hands and crying that we are bound. We ourselves have created this bondage, and so it is left for us to free from it. There is nothing wrong in living in the world, nothing wrong in earning wealth through righteous means to take care of one's wife and children. But the mind should always be turned towards God, like the servant maid thinking of her own child in the village, even while working in her master's house. Think of God all the time, pray to Him, and hear His stories, read them, and think over them. Consider, says he, your wife and children as gods, and service to them is like worship to God. When the devotion becomes intense, mind becomes pure. After marriage, when one or two children are born, the husband and wife should consider themselves as brother and sister. Till the children come of age, it is the responsibility of the parents to take proper care of them. Even while doing their worldly duties, they should have Shraddha and trust in God. In course of time, raise the wife too to the level of Sahadharmacharini. Do not find pleasure in mere scholarship and logic, as it makes one egoistic. Mere scholars are like vultures, who though may fly high, have their eyes fixed on the carcasses below. When one develops intense devotion to God, discrimination and wisdom will dawn on him naturally. Have regular contacts with Mahatmas. A true Mahatma is one in whose presence one feels irresistible urge to see God. They reveal spiritual truths through their lives and talks. Devotion should develop and become intense longing or vyagulata, leading to constant prayers. Pray for meditation, trust and discrimination and love of the Lord. I and mine should change to thee and thine. As said earlier, it is better to assume the role of a servant or a devotee. Pray to him, I am your servant. I surrender myself completely to you. Abandon the thought that you are the doer or you are the enjoyer. Instead, leave everything to him. Do your duties diligently without expecting any fruits thereof. The Master tells us that our mind is like an iron needle covered with mud, and God is the magnet. Unless the needle is cleared of mud, the magnet cannot reach the needle. Lust, anger, greed, ego, these are the mud in the needle. Unless the mind gets purified, it is not possible to have the vision of God. All troubles come to an end when the ego dies, says the Master. It is on account of the ego one is not able to see God. The ego is like a curtain before God. One should live in the world like the mudfish, on whom the mud does not attach, though it lives in muddy water. The Master advises that prayer and japa are effective means of connecting with God. All these should culminate in complete surrender, relying entirely on His grace. There is no laziness or cowardice in it, but courage and strength in accepting whatever God gives, for who but He knows best. The Master also advises us to go to an isolated place occasionally and think of God. In course of time, the time thus spent should be increased. If one lives in a room where the walls are covered with soot, however cautious you may be, some of it may stick to you. Hence, his suggestion to remove oneself from the familiar surroundings and spend some time alone and meditate on God. It is immaterial whether you think of a personal God or a formless God. These disciplines, if done regularly and sincerely, will cure the disease of materialism. Once you happen to drink the nectar of God's grace, then who will hang after the bland water of material pleasures? Asks the Master. Needless to say, these words of the Master will be received with great pleasure and gratitude when it was generally thought that it was not possible for householders to get God's vision. While a sannyasi has to have both internal and external renunciation, a householder needs to have internal renunciation alone in the early stage when he has to carry out his worldly duties. While the householder is fighting safely within a fort, the sannyasi has to fight in the open, and hence he is more vulnerable than the householders. One who has the vision of God will naturally have infinite knowledge, infinite purity, infinite power, and infinite bliss, and becomes the very epitome of truth. Sri Ramakrishna was such a Satya Jnana Ananda Murti, as his disciples and followers testify. He was willing to renounce everything except truth. As for his infinite knowledge, those who read Vajanamritam will have no doubt. That is why the great men of his times like Keshav Chandra Sen, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Majumdar, and the educated young men of his time like Narendranath, later Swami Vivekananda, great men and Mahatmas like Max Muller, Isherwood, Huxley, Toynbee, Gandhi, Aurobindo, to mention but a few, were drawn to him and honored him. His infinite power had worked directly and indirectly through thousands of men and women the world over, and is still working unobtrusively, transforming and ennobling them. When he was alive, his mere touch, look, and words have changed the lives of countless people. His very words, even now, have an electrifying effect upon the readers. His universal love reminds one of Buddha's compassion. His love was greater than that of parents, so says his direct disciple. He was always in bliss, even while his body suffered, during his samadhi, due to his bliss of Nitya, and at other times looking upon the world as Leela. As Swami Vivekananda observed, Sri Ramakrishna combines in himself the brilliant intellect of Shankara and the expansive, infinite heart of Chaitanya. He is a much greater Mahatma than even his disciples thought of him. More and more people are being attracted towards him. Swamiji adds, Sri Ramakrishna is a force. You should not think that his doctrine is this or that, but he is a power living even now in his disciples and working in the world. He is both a Jivanmukta and an Acharya. He was the savior of women, savior of the masses, and savior of all, high and low. As you all know, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is an English translation of the Bengali spiritual text Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita by Swami Nikhilananda. It is a record of conversations of Sri Ramakrishna with his disciples, devotees, and visitors, recorded by Mahendranath Gupta, who wrote under the pseudonym of M. A close study of the Gospel will remove all sufferings, doubts, fears, and anxieties from which we often suffer. It will fortify us with courage, strength, and wisdom, and enable us to face the challenges of life successfully and help us to attain inner joy and abiding peace, thereby making a success of life. May the blessings of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sharada Devi, and Swami Vivekananda be upon us all. Jai Sri Ramakrishna.